Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Probably wondering, some of the more astute people in my audience, where's my yellow vest? Well, I like to try and be clever, you see. I like to put my high-vis on my coat, that way, and then hang the coat on the chair. But I do that so that then I'm a lazy fuck, sue me. I then put it on, and I don't have to worry about where's my high-vis, because it's already on my coat. Genius here, flung his coat round to try and put it on, and the thing fell off. So that's why I don't have my high-vis. But of course you didn't come here to find out about my small little health and safety mistake. There are a number of things I want to mention, but first, let's recall a number. Nigel Farage mentioned it recently. 147,000. Now for once, this has nothing to do with Brexit. It's actually the number of people who are charged with carrying knives, carrying guns, committing sexual offences, and all that other unpleasant shit. Yet, a lot of these people are getting community service. No sentences whatsoever. But the moment you say to the police, you're not English anymore, you get 20 months in prison. Someone try to make that make sense. I dare you. I'll be sitting here waiting. And if that's not bad enough, Kier the traitor Starmer is now making it so you don't even have to serve half your sentence, which we already knew about. But now he wants to make it so burglars, thieves, even rioters at those protests, like in Southport and Stoke-on-Trent, they can now be released after only serving a fifth of their sentence. I can't see anything wrong with this at all. No, nothing could possibly go wrong with that shit. Absolutely nothing at all. Said no one ever. Imagine some thug, some violent individual gets sent to prison. They only have to serve a fifth of their sentence. Imagine them being sentenced to 12 months in prison. They practically only need to serve about 2 1/3 months or whatever it is, and then they're free to go. Do you know what that stinks of? Soft touch. Almost felt like I'm grabbing a breast there. Anyway, it screams soft touch. It screams we don't have a tough judicial system. We're not going to end up incentivizing these criminals to not reoffend. All we're going to do is encourage more new offenders to come out and commit more crime. Because at this point, it's practically set in stone that if you commit any kind of crime, you're basically going to get a slap on the wrist. Nothing more. With the least important subject out of the way, let's get on to the meatier stuff. Let's talk Brexit. Let's talk Kier the traitor Starmer. Let's talk about the fact that, let's face it, Kier the traitor Starmer wanted ever closer union ever since the Brexit referendum was a subject. Because Kier the traitor Starmer and the rest of the Labour cronies were all massive fans of the gravy train. I mean, to be fair, who wouldn't want free money and a big fat pension from the state? Who doesn't want to live a life of luxury where you basically don't have to worry about finances anymore, except maybe what you're going to spend it on? And the unelected bureaucrats in Brussels are also a part of WEF and forming socialism and making sure democracy doesn't matter. And of course they're pro-free movement. Namely, anybody that tries to come into the country, whichever it is, they have to accept those migrants, and there's nothing they can do about it. I think the only exceptions were those in the Schengen zone. So is it really any wonder why Kier the traitor Starmer and, of course, the Labour Party all want us to rejoin the European Union? I mean, it's almost a socialist's wet dream. Let's face it. I wouldn't be surprised if Kier the traitor Starmer doesn't go to bed every night and before he goes to bed has a different kind of shandy, if you catch my drift. Well, no drinks for me, because I don't drink alcohol. Anyway, it wouldn't surprise me if that's the kind of thing he would do before he goes to bed every night. Some people have been a little bit slow when it comes down to this, but I've known from the off. Kier the traitor Starmer is going to do everything he can to bring us back into the EU. There are some, though, who have known, much like me, that he was going to do this, or the Labour Party in general would do this, the first chance they got. They all really are a bunch of champagne-sipping socialist bastards, bluntly speaking. Remember, David the Con Man Cameron of the Conservatives Party never even wanted to give us the referendum in the first place. The only reason he gave it to us was basically because he was forced to by Nigel Farage. He was forced to. It was that, or UKIP got a substantial number of votes. But unfortunately, with our current first past the shit post system, we basically don't get political and proportionate representation in government. It's a sad state of affairs when back in 2016, UKIP basically got, I think it was like 3 times more votes than the SNP, or at bare minimum twice as many. Yeah, they only got 1 seat, while the SNP got 50. Why is that? First past the shit post. But that's something the media would rather not talk about. Now, I'm going to drive away from the EU for the time being, as fast as my fat little legs will take me, as well as Kier the traitor Starmer. For a time, don't worry, I'll give him another proper grilling like he rightfully deserves, because at the end of the day, grilling our Prime Minister isn't an illegal act. Let's go over to Tommy Robinson, because the mainstream media, and this is obviously not really new news per se, but the mainstream media have always loved to line up the firing squad, metaphorically speaking, and take shots at Tommy Robinson based off of who he is rather than what he's done. Especially when it comes down to those said riots, where hundreds, thousands of concerned British parents and patriots took to the streets to say, what the fuck are you going to do about our children getting stabbed, like the poor souls in Southport, God rest their souls. I know someone said that I discredited them a bit, and I do apologise for that much. I shouldn't have said the poor bastards, or whatever it was I said, because they're not bastards. I was just saying it because it was more of a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing, and I do genuinely feel for those kids. Let that be absolutely clear before we go any further. But the mainstream media went out of their way to libelously slander Tommy Robinson and his good name, no matter how many convictions he has or hasn't got, where they tried to say that Tommy Robinson was one of the main instigators of the riots. Absolute bullshit. Absolute unequivocal bullshit. Tommy Robinson has been one of the few people who has actually called for peace. He has categorically been seen on film and on some of his videos. Don't just take my word for it. Do some research. You're all adults. You can look him up for yourself and see some of the videos he put out when he was mentioning about these protests. He categorically said he's calling for calm. He doesn't want violence. He wants a peaceful revolution. But of course, the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. They don't want people to know that Tommy Robinson was one of the people who was calling for peace. He was one of the people who some of these quote-unquote organised protests were a trap, and was basically saying, don't go to them. Much like Richard Inman, Maya Toosey, Paul Thorpe, myself, just to name a few. We all said, don't attend these rallies because we're not the ones organising them. We're not the ones who are going to be responsible for a hit piece job from the mainstream media to say, oh look, far-right thugs commit violence against the police and police stations and migrant hotels. We're not the ones doing that shit. This is the establishment doing psyops here. They're trying to get us to look bad, because they know full fucking well we're the ones going out there reporting the truth, while the mainstream media are the ones breaking Section 2 of the 2006 Fraud Act fraud by false representation. And they sure as shit have been doing a hell of a lot of that with the supposed far right. Ordinary concerned parents, concerned patriots who merely want their country to be a place where their children could grow up safely without the fear of, oh, I don't know, getting brutally stabbed in the face. That's the thing. The media don't dare report that the supposed far right, or former leader of the EDL as they like to call it, you know, the EDL that disbanded like 10 fucking years ago, is actually calling for peace. They don't want to say that shit because it would make him look bad. It would make Tommy look good when he has only done good, not bad, like the mainstream media will want to tell all the NPCs who swallow all that bullshit the mainstream media spoon feeds them. Now, if I was Tommy Robinson right now, considering they've been going after him with a substantial amount of lawfare, and how the Attorney General has filed for a second contempt of court charge for Tommy Robinson, it's no fucking wonder he left the country. It's no fucking wonder he left. I don't blame him, quite frankly. Now, let me be clear, this is not me advocating for anybody to commit criminal acts, but I am saying I don't blame him for leaving. Because if I had a country that despised me this much for making the media, the establishment, our two-tier justice and police system look stupid, if I was getting embarrassed by one man, I would probably want him silenced as well, to put it into perspective. That's the way I look at it. So, yeah, it stands to reason why Tommy Robinson left the country. It stands to reason why he's not returning to the country. Because the moment he returns, he's going to probably have an entourage of police officers or counter-terrorism officers. They even did him for counter-terrorism offences at one point, or something like that. They basically tried to hold him on counter-terrorism offences. Sorry for making that a bit jumbled. But they used those laws to hold him for no reason, basically, when they should be using that on real terrorists. The media may not want to accept it, but the cold, bitter truth is Tommy Robinson is not responsible for instigating the riots. There's only one person in this country who is entirely responsible for fanning the flames of these riots, these acts of violence, the acts of thuggery, the acts of looting, which I do not condone. There's only one person responsible for that, and his name, and it is a mouthful, so say it with me, folks, Kim Jong-Kier Stalin, the traitor Starmer. And I will never take a damn word of it back. Because unlike a lot of people, as I've said many times before, and it's basically my tagline here, I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I am not going to mince my words. I am not going to bullshit you, or I'll try not to. And I am going to say it exactly how I see it. And I'll also tell you who else is not responsible for stoking these riots. Nigel Farage. Whether you like Nigel Farage or not, Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage have not instigated these riots, and they do not deserve half the shit they've had thrown at them. And if I was in Tommy Robinson's shoes right now, do you know what I'd be doing? I'd be taking the mainstream media to court. I'd be issuing a summons for them for libel and slander and defamation, because Tommy has definitely faced a substantial amount of it. He has faced a substantial amount of defamation of character and libelous slander from the mainstream media, who all try to project onto him he's responsible for all this and inciting hatred and violence, when he has done nothing but call for calm. I would be going to court and I would be taking out the trash, metaphorically speaking, and placing it in the dustbin of history where it rightfully belongs. I mean, Tommy Robinson has been the unfortunate victim of an egregious campaign against him of lawfare, where they do everything they can through the political system to punish him and bankrupt him. Why don't we do the same to the mainstream media? I'd do the same if I was in Tommy Robinson's shoes. I would go straight to the courts and I would put them through the same treatment they gave him. An eye for an eye. I wonder how quickly the mainstream media will want to retract their lawfare against Tommy Robinson. Oh, they'll do it real quick when they start realising Tommy can take them to the cleaners. You see, the mainstream media on the left, they're all well and dandy when it comes down to prosecuting the supposed far right. But when the tactics are turned on them, for example, if TV licensing goons love to visit people to try and extort money from them, and then ordinary people decide to visit them, oh look, the police turn up. It's similar to this. What do you think is going to happen when the mainstream media start having their own tactics used against them? The art of lawfare, taking them to court, winning compensation in damages that the media have done to Tommy Robinson to try and slander his good name. Or what about Kier the traitor Starmer? What about taking him to court and taking some money off of him? Because at the end of the day, a lot of these fuckers, they love to take your taxpayer money, but they don't want to give any of theirs. That's the thing. The media won't like it if we do it to them. But that's the thing. They're all a bunch of dish it but can't take it wankers, bluntly speaking. They may not like Tommy Robinson, but I'm willing to bet if they were hit with the same tactics they keep using on him, I think they would start to have a newfound level of respect for Tommy, because they would understand that he can beat them at their own game, and they need to start being a lot smarter about this. And here's the thing. We should rule nothing out with the mainstream media. We've already seen the BBC is willing to hire 2 hitmen to kill a drug dealer in front of his kids for the tune of around £55,000 to £58,000. We've seen that. Alex Belfield covered that story. You know, the guy who got sentenced to jail for 5.5 years for subtle stalking or whatever the charge was. Like, I may not agree with a lot of Alex Belfield's views, but that is a story that is worth mentioning from Alex Belfield, because it shows you how far the mainstream media are willing to push for their own narrative. It shows how far they're willing to go to protect the establishment, if you will. If they're willing to do this to a drug dealer, what do you think they're willing to do to Tommy Robinson? And while I accept that the money they give Tommy to Robinson will be like a drop in a bucket, piss in the wind, quite frankly, they still need to have this done to them to teach them a lesson and to show ordinary members of the British public that they can get justice against a treacherous establishment. They have to understand all hope is not lost. It may look dark, it may look grim, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not that of an oncoming train. Tommy Robinson has every right to say what he has said. The only time he would ever be in the wrong is if he basically went and incited violence or terrorism, which he has never done at any point in his life. Kier the traitor Starmer, on the other hand, has incited violence and hatred towards old Whitey. He has actually done that back in the oldie days, back when I believe Margaret Thatcher was in power. He won a few violent protests himself. So surely he should be arrested and sent to jail for his crimes. Speaking of which, it does beg the question, doesn't it? All the shit that Kier the traitor Starmer has done. Treachery, lying to the British public, fraud effectively, and basically willing to protect one section of the United Kingdom, that being Islam, versus what his civic duty is, which is to protect the entire British public, not just one group. As I said, he's doing sectarianism. He is effectively inciting hatred against the white British class. But that's something, of course, the mainstream media do not want to tell you. Sectarianism, fascism, racism, and being the sort of person who wants to turn this country into a dictatorship. Or again, maybe I was right first time. But the man's reputation, Kier the traitor Starmer's reputation, is in complete tatters right now. Because of all of his deceit, dishonesty, his lies against the British public, his blatant racism, his sectarianism, and taking political prisoners, basically, in that of the ordinary indigenous public who just want their kids to be safe. The cold, bitter truth that Kier doesn't want to admit is that he is effectively a criminal running the country. That's the cold, bitter truth, folks. Now, last time I checked, if somebody was a very serious criminal, you wouldn't want them in power running a bath, let alone a bloody country. And I will mention this point again. This is not the time to keep quiet anymore. Back 10, 20 years ago, maybe you could say, we can't talk about it in a public place. We can't talk about it on a bus, or in a hall, or out in public. We're past that point. We are long past that point. Evil only wins when good men and women do nothing. That's why I'm never going to stop talking about what I'm doing. That's why I'm never going to stop talking about the problems that plague the country. It's why I'm not going to allow Kier the traitor Starmer to get away with any of the shit he's done. And you know what? I'm going to be so bold as to say it. I call for Kier the traitor Starmer's arrest. I'll repeat that. I am calling right now for our British police to arrest the criminal Kier the traitor Starmer. And something people will also notice over time is I've never called him sir. Do you know why that is? He is no sir. When I look at a sir, or a dame, or whatever the female equivalent is, someone who's truly deserving of the title, you can see it in them. They're respected, they have principles, they have a moral compass, they want to do what's right for the country, or do what's right generally speaking. I don't see any of those endearing qualities in Kier the traitor Starmer. That is why I will never call him sir, because he is not worthy of it. Likewise for Mark Rowley, I will never call him sir. I will never call Tony Blair sir. I will never call any of these traitorous elite politicians sir, because they're not worthy of that title. And while I accept a lot of the good coppers have left the force, surely there's got to be a few left in those 43 forces where out of 9,100 people, give or take like 50 or so, 5,050 or so left voluntarily. But maybe there's still some left in there who have some shred of decency, who will have the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to arrest Kier the traitor Starmer. I've never advocated for violence. I've never advocated for committing crimes. I've never advocated for terrorism. I've only advocated for one thing, now going to be two. The first, turn your backs on the British police when they ask for help, because they do not deserve it, the way they treat us. And second, which is now going to be on notice, on public record, I will advocate for the arrest of Kier the traitor Starmer. I will advocate for the impeachment of our Prime Minister for crimes of treason, fraud, and inciting violence and hatred towards his own people. I'm willing to say that shit, because unlike a lot of people, as I said, I'm not going to mince my words, and I am not going to back down. Kier the traitor Starmer is a man who needs to be in prison right now. And I wonder what a lot of the prisoners would say to him. I wonder what they would say when they see that he's been pissing taxpayer money up the wall and treating the British public with such contempt. or that he's allowing people who do the most sickening and disgusting offences towards children, they're being allowed to walk free, while people who post memes on the internet and say mean things on the internet are sent to jail. Oh god, I thought that was actually for me then. Anyway, these are the kinds of people that shouldn't be in jail, whereas the murderers, the people committing offences I shall not name here, but you can probably guess which ones I'm talking about, or the ones who are actually a detriment, a danger to this country, they should be the ones in prison, not people speaking out because they're concerned about their country or kids. There are probably people on this bus right now who would want me to shut the fuck up. But as I said, I'm not going to shut the fuck up, because these issues need to be talked about. Think of it like cancer. If you want to deal with cancer, you've got to deal with it in the early stages. You've got to excise the tumours. You've got to get rid of the cancer cells in order for a patient to get better. The same logic applies to this establishment. For Kier the traitor Starmer to still be in office is in and of itself a crime, quite frankly. The fact that this man can still be sitting in 10 Downing Street with his barbed fucking tongue, spitting out his vitriol like daggers. The fact he can still sit there and persecute ordinary people and label them as far right is sickening. I have never, in all my 33 years of continued existence in this not-so-free trial of life, have I ever seen a more contemptuous politician as Prime Minister. Never. He is always going to be the biggest traitor and the biggest hypocrite and the most hated Prime Minister in British history. Oh, but it's all okay, folks, as long as he gets his little paycheck from the EU that he plans to sign us back up to. It's all right, folks. No, it fucking isn't. It is not okay for a traitorous Prime Minister like Kier the traitor Starmer to continue taking the piss and taking people's money. It is not acceptable to have a man like that who has such contempt towards the British people that he goes full-blown sectarianism, focusing on protecting the Muslim community and all the Bell End churches. And yes, I'm sorry, I stole that from Angry Bootleg. Fucking sue me. But that is basically what Kier the traitor Starmer is doing. He is protecting his own political class. He's protecting the enemies of the state while trying to persecute his perceived enemies. Tommy Robinson, YouTubers, far-right parents and patrons. And despite what happened at Notting Hill Carnival, hundreds of crimes committed there, gun and knife crimes, loads of degeneracy, and of course, multiple officers attacked. And last year, the Notting Hill Carnival cost £12 million of our taxpayers' money. I dread to fucking think what this one's gonna be worth. And he expects us to be happy about this? I said it before and I'll say it here again. How sad is it that we could literally hold people like Harold Shipman, one of the biggest mass murderers, especially of the elderly, in our British history. We could hold him at a higher level of prestige. I mean, we still hate his guts, let me be clear on that much. But we could hold him at a somewhat greater level of respect over Kier the traitor Starmer, who's looking to screw over the elderly and let them freeze to death, while 5,000 beds are being kept as a stockpile for any illegal immigrants wanting to come over here. I don't know about you, but it all stinks of shit to me. Half an hour of ranting. I need a drink. Bear with me. Right, much better. Let's finish this thing. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, Kier the traitor Starmer has no purpose in being in office whatsoever. I wouldn't trust him running this tap, let alone the fucking country, quite frankly. Man is only interested in serving himself. I tell you what, Kier the traitor Starmer, directly addressing you now, if you think these protests that you've seen over the last few weeks have been bad, you haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen a fucking thing yet. Trust me, if you continue down this path of trying to overturn the biggest vote in British history, that being the Brexit referendum, you are in for a fucking wake-up call of the millennia. You will have so many people marching down all across the country to see you out of office, that it will make those protests that happened with the riots and what have you, it'll make that look like a fucking picnic. Like, you will have no idea how many people will march down to basically break your balls, metaphorically speaking, of course. You have no idea how much of a shitstorm you will bring upon you. You really don't. You think you do, but you don't. There will be hundreds of thousands of patriots who will march down calling for your resignation, as if they aren't doing that already. And some of these people who I will not condone may even be asking for your head on a spike, quite frankly. As I said, I don't think that's the right way to go about it, because I want this to ideally to end peacefully rather than with a violent revolution. I don't condone violence. I don't condone terrorism. I don't condone inciting hatred. I don't condone racism. But look at them. Look at these people, Kier the traitor Starmer. You are leaving them with no options. When you make peaceful resolution impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. When tyranny becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Have you not heard of those sayings, Kier the traitor Starmer? The way I look at it is these people have been very kind to you right now. I may not be, because I see you for what you are, a dictator with no respect for the British people. And as such, are getting exactly the same back from us. Zero fucking respect. As you rightfully deserve. That is why I am calling for your arrest, Kier the traitor Starmer. You need to be impeached. Because you, and I'm using Hamza Yusuf's words now, you are a very dangerous man. You are a very, very dangerous man in a position you should have never even graced with a single pinky, let alone your entire fucking body. And it is, God only knows how many stones of uselessness in there. I may be 18.5 stone or more, but you know what I am? I'm 18.5 stone of fucking truth. I'm 18.5 stone of patriotism and passion for my country. And I am fucking pissed to see people like you, Starmer, piss our money up the wall and piss our country down the gutter. I'm tired of people like you. I'm tired of having career politicians who put themselves, who put career over country, who put personal gain over country well-being. That's why I want to see you impeached. That's something I will advocate for, 100%. And you know what? I think I've got thousands of people who will join me on that notion, quite frankly. You are not even fit to lick the boots of the lowest officers in our country, or the lowest ranking soldiers in our army. You wonder why people back in the day kicked you out of pubs for what you did for lockdown, have a look back on it. Take a good long look in the fucking mirror. Have a long look. What do you see? You know what? I may be a big guy. I may be one of those people who maybe is a little too angry, but it's more through passion rather than just uncontrollable rage, where I want to put a hole through a fucking wall or something. And you know what? If I had a mirror right here, like I've got a mirror right in front of me, and I took a long look at it, at least I'd see myself back in that reflection. I bet if you looked in that mirror, Kier the traitor Starmer, you wouldn't have an image in there. Because you're not a person. You're a scumbag. You're a traitor. You're a fascist. You're a dictator. You're a sectarianist bastard, bluntly speaking. And you know what? I don't give a shit if it puts me in prison. I'm not going to mince my words with you, Kier the traitor Starmer. Because at the end of the day, unlike you reading into your little auto cue or reading your little bits of paper off a script, these are my real opinions. These are my real feelings. These are my actual beliefs and principles. I have them. You don't. I have integrity. I have standards. You don't. And you know what? I'd rather go to prison and die than live on my knees like you'd have us do, Kier the traitor Starmer. That's the way I look at you. You'd rather subjugate this country to follow Islam. Hell, you're already trying to bring in blasphemy laws that if you speak negatively against Islam, it's a crime. Yusuf, or maybe I was right first time, tried to do the same thing with Scotland with the hate crime law. Look where it landed him. Look where it'll land you. But I'll go back to that point I made as far as the mirror is concerned. But before I do and end it, don't forget, guys, I'm now on Twitter. I believe I put a link in the previous video's description. Some of you may have also noticed I've been putting my PayPal in that one as well. Let me be absolutely clear on this before anybody says, he's a grifter. No, that is merely there so anybody who wants to support me further can do so. But let me be clear, I will always do these videos without charging you a fucking penny. I will do this off my own back. Again, principles and standards. I will continue to do these videos whether you pay me a penny, whether you pay me $1,000, or whether you don't even give me a fucking fig. I will still do these videos for you. Because unlike Kier the traitor Starmer here, I respect the people. And I would always say, look after yourselves first before you start thinking about donating to me. But that reflection point that I made, Kier the traitor Starmer, when I look in the mirror, I can see myself. I may be a big guy, I may look like two people, but at least I can see myself in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, you see nothing. Because you are a ghost of the physical shell that you inhabit.